for the first time in 3 years, 4 months, and 16 days, Karen Reid is going to go to bed tonight and lay her head down on the pillow, not formally accused of causing the death of her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. And here is the moment in court when she learned what the rest of her life was going to be like today.
Murder in the second degree. What say you? Is the defendant at the bar guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
So say you, Mr. Foreman? So say you? No. Do you agree?
Yes.
Do all of you agree?
Yes.
Thank you. 002. What say you? Is the defendant at the bar not guilty or guilty?
Not guilty.
Of?
Is not guilty or guilty of that charge or any lesser included charge? Thank you. Specifically, number 5, operating under the influence of liquor by operating a motor vehicle with a blood alcohol level of 0.08 or greater. Correct?
Yes.
So say you, Mr. Foreman?
Guilty.
So say you all?
Yes. Guilty.
003. What say you? Is the defendant at the bar leaving the scene after accident resulting in death? Is the defendant not guilty or guilty?
Not guilty.
So say you, Mr. Foreman?
Yes.
So say you all?
Yes.
Could you hear the roar? I will tell you about that in a second, but that's the jury in Karen Reid's retrial putting to rest any concerns that they themselves stirred up a day ago that they might deadlock, exactly the way her first jury did last year. As you heard, the jury 2.0 acquitted Karen Reid of everything except the least serious charge that was in front of them, and that charge is operating a vehicle under the influence, for which Judge Beverly Cannoni gave her a single year of probation. That is a standard sentence for that charge, same as any other first-time offender, which means no jail, just, watch your P's and Q's while you're out there for a year. And just like that, as they say, it was over. There was actually a bit of a hiccup, though. Just before this moment, the jury said that they'd reached a verdict, and then they said, oh, hold it, we spoke too soon. They weren't done after all. And then they made everybody freak out for 15 minutes, and then I said, no, we've got the verdict, it's for real. And while Karen was welling up with tears, like you could see her hands were shaking as she was wiping out the tears there was an audible roar that you could hear outside the courthouse. From in that courtroom, you could hear the roar when the verdict was read from those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of supporters who were all outside. This was the scene. It was madhouse. It was just crazy. It was pandemonium. And when the former defendant, now free and clear, stepped out onto those courthouse steps to resume her life, there was absolute bedlam. Yeah, look at that, like rock star. With her father and her lead attorney at her side, Karen Reid thanked her incredibly devoted and vocal band of believers when she took the mic.
I just want to say 2 things. Number 1 is I could not be standing here without these amazing supporters who have supported me and my team financially and, more importantly, emotionally for almost 4 years. And the second thing I want to say is no one has fought harder for justice for John O'Keefe than I have and my team. Thank you.
And that brings me to the mystery attached to any murder case that ends in acquittal. If Karen Reid did not kill John O'Keefe, who did? We know what Reid and her defense team and her legions of supporters think, that O'Keefe was killed by one or more fellow cops at a house party the night before John was found frozen in the snow, and that those same people set Karen Reid up as a scapegoat. Tonight, Team Karen has a new rallying cry, and that is, quote unquote, justice for John, which they say they hope will pressure the DA into reopening the investigation into his death. So stay tuned. But right now, I want to bring in NewsNation national correspondent Marcus Espinoza, who has been at the courthouse for all of this. It's a lot quieter now, Marcus. I saw you in that crowd earlier today interviewing. Holy cow. Just take me to that moment and what it felt like to be in it, what it sounded like, what it looked like. Just take me there.
Yeah.
Ashleigh, good evening. Great to be on. Here's the thing. You mentioned rock star a couple times, and I basically compared it to a sporting event when somebody scored basically the game-winning touchdown. When she walked down those steps there, it was a huge eruption, a bombastic celebration of the fact that Karen Read had been acquitted of those serious murder charges, and it was constant. It did not stop in 5 minutes. It was something where they began singing, they began chanting, there were pictures being taken. It was really just that part in particular. I have never been a part of a trial where so much fanfare has been a part of the defendant there. And then just the fact on the Karen Read part real quick, she was so interactive with her supporters every single time she would get out of her SUV just on the corner there and then come and walk up the steps. She took her time. She addressed her supporters every single time, would blow kisses to her supporters. I mean, this was a very interactive and very just communicative defendant, which is definitely odd when you're considering the fact that she was on trial for murder of her boyfriend and that she could spend the rest of her life in prison. So just some insight on that. It was certainly surreal to be a part of when that verdict came down.
Well, I'll tell you what, Marcus, a couple of times in my career, I have had that same experience. OJ, for one, that was pandemonium when he had a not guilty verdict. Casey Anthony, pandemonium when it was a not guilty verdict. Jodi Arias, pandemonium when it was a guilty verdict. So it's just sort of amazing. But there were two sides there today, and I know you had a chance to talk amongst the crowd. What was the prevailing wisdom among the people you interviewed?
Yeah, so a couple points I want to hit on there. Really, 99.9% of folks here, and there were hundreds of folks here. They've been here since last week, been here basically since this entire thing started, and then definitely here for the retrial. But 99% of the folks here were Karen Read supporters. I spoke to one of them live during that verdict news, basically minutes after it happened. There were tears around me. People were hugging each other, and they were crying and just basically embracing one another. And I asked somebody just minutes after that verdict came down why they're here and what brought them to support Karen Read so extensively. Here's what she had to say.
I've been out here since November 22. Okay, we were right from the beginning when they started doing all the pre-trials, and we were here last year, and I stand out with the movement, and I also stand out on a bridge by myself for a year and a half. Because I believe in justice for John O'Keefe. My brothers are all police officers, and I believe in honest police officers, and that's what I stand out for.
Did you happen to know the Read family in any way, or Karen?
No.
And so a lot of people hear that and say, why are you out here supporting a stranger?
Right. I'm out here because I'm standing for justice, because that could have been me. I could have gone with my brother to an after party and something could have happened.
And Ashleigh, from my observations here since being here since mid last week, there were very little anti-Karen protesters here, at least in person. What we did see at one point was a van drive by with a cardboard sign inside of the window that said guilty for Karen Read. That is the single moment that we saw as far as like anti-Karen Read opposition, but overwhelmingly it was supporters of Karen Read, their insistence that she was innocent, and that was really what you saw when you heard that eruption from inside the courtroom. My producer, Jonathan, who I'm looking at right now in front of me, who did an excellent job inside, he said it was hard for him to even hear the verdict inside the courtroom because out here it got so loud. So it was really pandemonium. Bedlam, you mentioned, is a great way to put it. It was just unlike anything I had seen in quite some time.
Yeah, you could hear it on the mics in the courtroom. You could hear the business outside as soon as the verdict came down. And by the way, Marcus, what an interview that you got. She said, I've been here since November of 2022, and my brothers are all police officers. That was the moment I thought, wow. And there she is, all adorned in pink to support Karen. Great job out there, Marcus Espinoza. Thank you for staying late. I really appreciate it. Get some rest. It's over, finally.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. I'm going to get some sleep for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Maybe a beer or two. Okay, my next guest knows this case inside and out. He's the attorney for the YouTuber / activist who goes by the name Turtle Boy. He's been on this show. He's been involved since day one. You could arguably say he broke this story wide open and led to those supporters that you see, you know, outside court. Mark Bederow, thank you so much for coming back to the program. Wow, did you see this one coming?
I'm not surprised, but I think this case, if you know it carefully and follow it closely, has always been an acquittal case. There's a ton of reasonable doubt that was all over this place, from the poor investigation that was done initially, with some problems, obviously, with the state police, including the lead investigator. And I think more importantly in the second trial than the first trial, an emphasis on science, which all favored the defense in this case. So I'm not surprised. The jury obviously considered it carefully over the course of 4 days, but ultimately, I think they got it right.
So, Mark, you listed out a few things that were the reason we had the verdict that we had today, but I want to ask you about another big thing, and that's the guy with the beard she's hugging right there, and that's Alan Jackson. I've been calling him a hotshot attorney because I followed him ever since he prosecuted Phil Spector out in Los Angeles. He knows what he's doing. He's very, very good. Do you put a lot of emphasis on the case that he mounted for her?
Yeah, I mean, I think all her attorneys did an incredible job, but Alan, as the lead attorney, was excellent. I think he gave a riveting summation. His examinations during the trial were spectacular. He's been just a perfect advocate for someone like Karen going through this. But I sincerely believe the entire team was outstanding, and Alan was a perfect leader for that team.
Let me ask you about this, because I kind of feel like Karen Read would not have done all those media interviews were it not for the okay from Alan Jackson. It's a double-edged sword. I'm wondering if the media interviews led to the not guilty verdicts today, or if she would have gotten them anyway, and the media interviews led to the one guilty verdict for operating under the influence.
I mean, look, any media interviews for a client who has an open case is always perilous, and you saw it in this case. The prosecution made her interviews. They clipped them repeatedly from several interviews and made those a central part of their case. How effective were they? I don't know. Did they factor into the misdemeanor conviction? They could have. She did talk about consuming alcohol in some of those, but there were also videos from her at the bar consuming alcohol. There was an extrapolated blood alcohol test, which presumably showed her over the limit. In terms of the interviews, how much might they have helped in terms of gaining attention? Perhaps a little, but in all fairness, I think overall, the interviews probably did not do her any favors. But again, they were never going to lead to her being convicted. Having her speak about what she believes could have happened or sharing her thoughts about what could be, we're never going to overcome the insurmountable, amount of reasonable doubt based on science and things of that nature. I don't think Karen saying I might have hit him was ever going to conquer that hill of reasonable doubt.
So let me ask you this, because she came out of court and she stood there on the steps, made a very, very quick comment on the open mics in front of the supporters and said, that her mission is to, find justice for John. So what does that look like? Are we going to see an investigation opened up to find somebody else to charge in his death?
I mean, I don't think so, for the simple reason this case was botched so early in the process by the Canton police and followed up by the Massachusetts State Police that the opportunity to catch whomever was responsible for this was lost. I mean, they didn't secure a crime scene. They didn't preserve evidence properly. They didn't try to figure out by going inside the house at 34 Fairview what people may have seen, what they might have said. They didn't knock on neighbors' doors and try to secure video. At this point, 3.5 years later, I think, unfortunately, the O'Keefe family will never get the answers that they certainly are entitled to, and that it's essentially over.
Mark, I have 20 seconds left. What's Karen Read's life going to be like in Canton? Can she stay there? Is she safe? Does she have a target on her back, or will she be this rock star with attention she probably doesn't want?
I mean, she doesn't live in Canton. I don't think she'll be staying in Canton. Whether she stays in Massachusetts, who knows? I mean, at this point, she's a public figure. Anytime she goes out, people are going to know who she is. And that's through no choice of her own. Unlike athletes, musicians who become famous, they want to be famous. So, you know, it remains to be seen what she does, whether she stays there or moves on.
Mark Bederow, it's good to talk to you. I really appreciate this. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.